All right, if you're following along with the last video, the first one kind of gave an explanation for what the project is and what I'm working on. The second video gave an explanation of the overall journal and how I put together all of the different articles and where they came from. And now I'm going to talk about an individual article, to talk about a little bit more of the process of editing and turning it into this LaTeX format. So I'm going to zoom in here. Well, let me first actually show you. This is what our final version of the journal looks like. On the initial page, where there's the title and the abstract and all that kind of stuff, there is no heading or footing. That's just the convention of this, the APA format, and that's just what they do. I'm going to try and figure out if I can change that, because I would like to have page number on all the pages with the heading of the journal name and all that kind of stuff. I just haven't figured that piece out yet, but that's what I would like to have, but this doesn't have it. It does have it on subsequent pages, of course, and so I don't need to go through. By the way, this is kind of interesting. This is what hyperref looks like when you're looking at it. I can then click to that, and it'll take me right down to the references at the end, which I thought was pretty kind of sweet. But anyway, this is the actual article. There's not much to say about that. The conventions are what they are. All of this stuff can be changed. I don't have the skill level yet, I don't think, to change all of the things that I want to, but I'll work on it. One of the things that was suggested was moving the author notes to the end of the article, but this is just a choice of each individual journal and what makes sense for them. So there's that. Okay, let's look at the preamble here again. There's a few other things that I didn't talk about in the last video that I think are worth mentioning. Most of this stuff is exactly the same as the other place, although in here, this is where I get to add my bibliography resource, since each individual article has its own bibliography that I work from. What I do, and some authors are still sending me an APA formatted paper, because that's how they've always done it, and they have their references listed at the end in their perfect format and all that kind of stuff. What I then do is I go out and find all those articles and put it into BibTeX format. This guy, I was working with him, he's not a professional writer, so at least he writes professionally for his clinical practice, but he does not write for academic sources very often. So this is something that I work with him. Plus, he has no idea APA format, because he didn't come from that background, so he's not expected to know that, right? So I asked him, while you're doing this and you go find information on websites and from other journals and that kind of stuff, can you put things in BibTeX format? And he was like, oh, that's great, because I don't know where to put commas and where to put periods, and if the date goes in parentheses or it comes at the end or whatever. So I said, okay, you can put it into BibTeX format. I'll show you that in a different video. But he was able to do that, and then I just took his file and put the name in here, and this is what builds the references for each individual article. The rest of this is the same. One thing to note is that because of the form, this took me a while to figure out, so I'm going to say it here, and I was really proud of myself when I did this. Because even if this were only an online document and that's the sole purpose of it, I would have the page number on the same side for every page. But understanding that this is eventually going to go to print for some people who subscribe to the journal, I wanted to have alternating page numbers on both sides. So it was really important to me to make sure I had the page number on the left hand for a left-hand page and the page number on the right hand for the right-hand page. It's going to be opposite for you watching this, but this is my left, my right. And then the vice versa for the issue number. And what that looks like essentially is something like this. Here's the page number on the left, because it's a left-hand page. If I'm opening a book, here's the volume and issue on the right. And the opposite, here's the page number on the right for the right-hand page, right? So that's something that if you've never done this before, I had never even thought about that before, but it makes sense. Margins might be a little different on this. For this package, the AP or the document class, everything I have set up is virtually the same width and margins, and I'm not too worried about printing. However, that might change. I might decide to move all of the text over a little bit so there's more room to have white space, so the binding doesn't cut that stuff off. It's one of the things that I had never cared about before, and I was just looking for a way to make this more efficient for me. But as you start to learn more about the publication process and what it means to bind books and how they need to look in terms of the final product, that's one of those things that I might change in the future. But I at least wanted to make this change here so that it could be binded appropriately and look better in print. Even though I sometimes I get kind of cocky and I'm like, we're never going to need print anymore. Who's going to need paper in 10 years? There's still going to be need for paper, I'm sure. But nevertheless, it's something that was here. It's kind of an important consideration for some of our readers who like the print better. I think that's pretty much everything else is the same. One of the things that I wanted to mention in this video is that the headache with this system, having each individual article compiled separately so that you get a PDF and then combining those PDFs later, that means if I have to add in an advertisement or I have to add in a blank page somewhere, or some author sends me something and says, oh, can you put this extra page in? I forgot something. If that moves one article to be one page longer, that means every other article has to increase their page number. And the way that I set the page number is this command right here. So the set counter says each individual article. This one, for example, starts on page 5 because I have an editor message and the table of contents. And so that means that this is page 5 right here, and this one's page 6. I go through all of those pages, and then I have to figure out when the next article starts, and I have to set that to start on the page that it's supposed to be. Otherwise, it would be all messed up, right? So that means if there's a change last minute, or even not last minute, as I'm going along, I have to update the pages accordingly so that they all have the correct page number, and that can be kind of a headache. If I didn't have this system and I was able to put all of the articles in one big long document, or even just use the include command or maybe this combine package, it would do all that for me, and I still want to figure out a way to do that, but I just haven't figured that piece out yet. This is the biggest headache of all the stuff, is just once you get to the final stage and all of my articles are back from authors, back from peer review and final review from authors, then I have to sort of organize and put together. This is the biggest fiddling process of the whole thing. And it's kind of the biggest headache of it. But beyond that, it's not too bad. I mean, it's just sort of busy work. That means I can watch YouTube or turn on music and do that so I don't have to concentrate too deeply. So it's an easy thing. It's just kind of tedious. Okay, other than that, one of the other things that's kind of worth mentioning here is articles like this. If you're new to LaTeX and you don't have a grasp on all of the commands, like how to make tables and how to make figures, this can be part of the learning curve, which can be fun for people like me who like to work with computer languages and that kind of stuff, but really tedious for those who are not tech savvy. This is what we're looking at right here is this table right above my head. It just puts in information the way the author wanted it laid out. And this is just a simple table that does this stuff. If you have a Word document that's coming to you from authors and they say, I want this table or I want this data set out this way, if you have a lot of scientific figures and graphs, there's a bunch more that you're going to have to do in terms of translating those graphs. There's also the possibility that if the graph is already set up by the author, like they get it from their SPSS outputs or something like that, then you can just include it as a picture, which I haven't had to navigate that quite yet, but I will shortly, I'm sure. So there's kind of options there. You can use the, what is that package? You can use the graphic X package to just input images, or you will need to format this stuff using just regular old vanilla LaTeX commands. So that's worth mentioning. This actually wouldn't compile right because there's a problem there. But nevertheless. I think that's pretty much it. And then bibliography here at the end, I included an ad in this article instead of trying to squeeze it in on a separate page. That's one of the things that I get to do now is figure out where I want to put ads. And if I do that, I can put it in just right in one of the individual articles, and that makes a nice filler of space at the end of a reference list or something like that. So next video, I think I'll go through a little bit of the bibliography, and then I think that's pretty much it. And I'll just look forward to some comments. So yeah.